Good day, Junior Techies. This is Mrs. Demalon speaking, and today we're looking at Activity 3, the General Journal. So, when we look at this activity, it tells us that we are going to do the General Journal of Pride Stationers. And we have to note that the markup of the business is 100%. So, when we calculate the selling price, we're going to have to remember that our selling price formula is equal to selling price over cost price over 1 times 100 plus the markup over 100, or your cost price formula, which is then just the opposite, selling price over 1 times 100 over 100 plus the markup. So we have to record the transactions in the General Journal at the end of July, and we have to remember the provisional totals. So please don't forget the provisional totals at the end of to add them in at the end of the transaction into the totals, because this is something that learners always forget. So if we look at the first transaction, they say the owner took stock for the business for a personal gift marked 510 Rand. So if it's marked 510 Rand, it means that that is the selling price. So we have to calculate the cost price. So 510 Rand times 100 over 200 is 255 Rand. Then, transaction number 2, C. Spedding is owed 300 Rand and her insolvent estate paid 30 cents in the Rand. This amount has been recorded. The remainder of the debt must still be written off. So, if she owed 300 Rand and her estate paid 30 cents in the Rand, it means that she still owes 70 cents. So, we have to then still write off 70 cents, so 70%. So, 300 times 70 over 100 is 210 Rand that must be written off. Then we have stationery was purchased but was incorrectly recorded as trading stock. So then remember, the moment we have a incorrect posting, draw your little T accounts. So we have stationery and trading stock. Stationery was incorrectly debited because we recorded it as stock instead of stationery. So how do we correct it? You do the opposite. Credit 410 for stationery and debit 410 Rand for correction. Credit trading stock 410 Rand and debit stationery 410 Rand. Then a credit note issued to a debtor Mthembu for 390 Rand was incorrectly posted to the account of the creditor Mthembu suppliers. So yet again, draw your little T accounts. So we have Mthembu in the debtors ledger, which is an asset, so debit plus and credit minus, and Mthembu suppliers, the creditor, so debit minus credit plus. We incorrectly added it into the credit side of the supplier. So we have to do the opposite. So we're going to debit the supplier and credit Mthembu, the debtor. Then the owner gave a delivery vehicle worth 170,000 Rand as a capital contribution. Now, because he gave a physical item as contribution, this must be recorded in the General Journal. Usually, if he contributed cash, it would have gone to the CRJ. Next one, the roof has been repaired at a cost of 5,300 Rand, and the amount has been posted to Land and Buildings in error. Now, you cannot post repairs as part of a land and buildings because it's not a new building. It was just repairs or maintenance, so it's an expense. So, land and buildings was debited, which was incorrect. So, what must we do? We must credit land and buildings and debit repairs. Draw your little T account so you can see it clearly and don't make a mistake when you post it into the journal. Number 7. The business invested 100,000 Rand at Angel Bank at the beginning of the year, and we received a statement from Angel Bank indicating the following. Now, the moment you see statement, we know that interest is going to be reinvested. So that is why they say interest on investment reinvested 20,000 Rand. They don't necessarily have to tell you that it's reinvested when they say we received a statement. You can assume that. And then they say the bookkeeper has not yet recorded the interest earned for the year. So it's not recorded yet. Great stuff. So we need to record it in the General Journal. So if we now look at the transactions, the first one is the drawings that we have to look at. So if we go back, if we go back and we look at the drawings that we had to record for at the cost price of 255 Rand, not the selling price of 510 Rand. The owner takes stock at cost always. The second transaction is writing it off as bad debts. So we have the bad debts and the debtors control cease paying. Now, when we have a debtor or a creditor, it is very important that you understand that there's a double posting that is happening. There's a posting to the control account and there's a posting to the individual's account. So it's very important to always, in the details, mention who we are posting to, because the details technically, cease paying is who we are posting to. Debtors control above here, I like to put it there as a reminder that this has to go to the debtors control columns as well. So I teach my learners to do both. Debtors control, but that is just a sort of reminder, and the more important one, cease paying in the details here. You'll get the marks for saying the name of the debtor. And if you just say debtors control, you'll get no marks. Then, if we look at the amount, remember that it's the 70% that is written off. So it's only the 210 Rand that we need to record it here. So we debit bad debts with 210 Rand, and then we credit Spedding's account with 210 Rand. That is the one entry. But remember, there's still an entry to the control account that we have to post to. So that is where debtors control 210 Rand on the credit side for the credit column on the debtors control entry comes from. Transaction number 3 is where we made the error, posting stationery as trading stock instead of stationery. So what should we do? We should draw our little T accounts, and we clearly see that we have to debit stationery and credit trading stock with 410 Rand. And that's a correction of an error. Then number 4, yet again, we posted to Mthembu suppliers. Instead of Mthembu in the debtors ledger. So that was the wrong credit. So we had to debit the supplier, and he is a creditor. So creditors control Mthembu suppliers, 390 Rand. And remember, there's a double posting. So one goes to the creditors control account and the debit column of the control account, and then Mthembu suppliers in the creditors ledger must have been debited with 390 Rand. A double posting. So when we have debtors and creditors, there's 2 places where it needs to go into a ledger. The general ledger for the control account and the creditors or the debtors ledger. And then you have to specifically name the debtor or the creditor. Continuing, so the debtors control, yet again, Mthembu, double posting yet again, first of all to Mthembu's debtors ledger account, 390 Rand, and then to the debtors control account, credit column, 390 Rand. We continue and we look at activity number 5, where the owner contributed a vehicle or gave a vehicle, donated the vehicle as capital contribution. And that is why we put it into the general journal, because it's a physical item that the owner gave to the business. Number 6, yet again, we recorded repairs as land and buildings. That's incorrect. We didn't build or add an addition to the building. We repaired it. It's maintenance. It's an expense, not an asset. So we have to credit land and buildings and debit repairs to fix the transaction with 5,300 Rand. And then number 7, the fixed deposit from Angel Bank, that we have to record the interest not yet recorded as reinvested. Very important, you have to put the name of the institution, Angel Bank. You can't just say fixed deposit, because we can have many deposits at different institutions. So we debit fixed deposit because it's reinvested, added to the asset, and credit interest on fixed deposit with 20,000 Rand. Excuse me for that tickle in my throat. Let's continue. So then we have to add up the general journal at the end of the month. And now you're going to say, where do I get these totals from? 460, 890, 620, 270. Remember, you have to look at the debit total, credit total for debtors control, and the same for creditors control. So if we go back to the previous slide, you'll see we have a 460 in the debit and nothing else. But in the credit column, we have the 380 plus the 210 plus the 390, and and then in the debit column, we have the 230 and the 390, and in the credit column, we have nothing else. So that is how we get to these totals. And what do we do with these totals? They will be posted to the general ledger accounts at the end of the month as journal debits and journal credits in the control accounts. But we'll look at the posting of these accounts in another activity. So in activity 4, we're going to look at the general journal and posting them to the control accounts. Have a very good day. And this is Mrs. De Mailon signing off.